Hello, friends. Welcome back to another episode of the Pack a Day podcast. I am your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. Hope this Friday is treating you well as you're listening to this, and hopefully this is the perfect kickoff to an amazing weekend for you all, an extended weekend. I can't think of anything better I'd rather be doing right now than be talking to you about the Green Bay Packers and football. It's what I love doing every single day, and I'm always appreciative of you guys joining me. I will admit to you quite readily that as we sit here on this Friday, I am so geeked out and ready for football already. This is probably the earliest that I've been like just totally peak geeked out mode for NFL season. I think this whole season is going to be such a beautiful mystery, from the Packers and their new quarterback, and probably some good, some bad, some in between, probably beating some teams they shouldn't beat, probably losing to some teams they shouldn't lose to. I'm so excited for all of it. It's a beautiful mystery. I think the AFC and all the top quarterbacks over there, it's going to be super intriguing. How does Aaron Rodgers do with the Jets? In the meantime, in the NFC, it's not super down. Like the whole thing to me, I cannot wait. I think there's a ton of fun rookie quarterbacks that are going to be worth keeping an eye on. It's all super exciting. I cannot wait. And like I said, I'm already geeking out, and it's not even, end of May, early June yet. So we've got a long ways to go, but I can't think of a better way to pass the time than to talking to you guys about Packers football 365 days a year. So as always, thank you so much for joining me. I just am so appreciative of you, and I'm so thankful to be doing this every single day to satiate my football thirst and be able to talk Packers every single day. So thank you for that. And that brings us to our main topic for today, which is going to be the Packers and their specific need for a second-year jump from a variety of their players. And listen, this is a cliche second-year jump topic, right? It just is what it is. Everyone wants to talk about going from year one to year two. You get a full year in the NFL weight room, and you've now had a full season learning the playbook, and now you can take this big jump. You know the NFL. You've now been in the weight room. You now know the playbook. Your head's not swimming quite as much, and now you can just go out and play football, and everyone just immediately gets better in year two and takes this big year two jump, right? Wrong. This is not how it works more often than not, and it's certainly not been how it has worked in Green Bay, especially last season. But that doesn't mean that Green Bay isn't in need of some players taking a significant jump as they go into year two this year. So we'll go over those players in just a moment, but I wanted to take a look more recently at the Packers' most recent draft classes and to see, hey, did some of these guys actually take a jump, or did they fizzle out, or what actually happened? And I think the real concern here is looking at last year's draft class, the 2021 or the 2022 draft class, the 2021 draft class, that played their second year in 2022. So Eric Stokes, Josh Myers, Amari Rodgers, Royce Newman, TJ Slayton, Shamar Jean-Charles, Cole Van Lanen, Isaiah McDuffie, and Kylan Hill. That is your group of 2021 draft picks who had their second year last year in 2022. And we were all hoping that that group was going to take a big jump in 2022. And that clearly did not happen. Not only did the second year jump not happen, there was a huge, and I mean huge, second year regression. So let's start at the top with Eric Stokes. Eric Stokes had a really nice first season as a rookie corner. Now, we always, in my opinion, have to be a little bit careful with rookies, because with rookies, it's like the one level of accident forgiveness that is still allowed to anyone in the NFL. Everyone as a rookie gets some level of like, oh, that's going to happen. They're a rookie. They're going to make a mistake here and there. It doesn't happen at any other level of the NFL. It doesn't happen for any other coaches, players, anything, GMs, etc. But rookies tend to get a little bit more of a benefit of the doubt, and we tend to see them with a little bit more of, rose-tinted glasses. We're willing to say like, oh, because I think how it sort of works, right, is we go through the draft process and we open up these presents and we're all excited about what these new draft picks are going to bring to the team. And all we're talking about all offseason is these rookies and what can they do and what can they bring. You get to the season, and then you start seeing some of this stuff on the field. And you're like, ooh, I like that. That seems really good. And they're like, oh, they made a mistake. But that's just a rookie mistake. They'll clean that up. And then they do some really good stuff again. And you're like, yes. And then all of a sudden they make another couple of mistakes. And you're like, yeah, that's going to happen from time to time. And you get through the rookie season like, that was a really good rookie season. Some ups, some downs, but we saw the flashes. And then the second year comes, and they do some of that good stuff again. You're like, oh yeah. And then they make the mistake and you're like, what the heck is going on? Why is this guy's in year 2? Like, you can't be making those mistakes. And it's like the tone changes immediately. I go back to Damarious Randall and Quentin Rollins, somebody that I've unfortunately had to talk about a couple of times now this offseason. But Damarious Randall, Quentin Rollins, you look at them as rookies, and we all had that, all right, these guys, like, hey, they're getting out there on the field already. They're making some big interceptions. Like, these guys are going to be really, really good. This is really, really exciting. And all the mistakes that would end up costing them their careers, and certainly their Green Bay careers, were on tape in that very first season as well. But we saw some of those flashes, and we were all excited about the new players. And all of a sudden, we're sort of forgetting in their rookie year about some of those mistakes. Not as big of a deal. They're rookies. They'll learn from it. As soon as you get to that second year and they're making the same mistakes, now all bets are off. And that's what we saw. Not only were they making the same mistakes, but they were making them over and over again. They never got it cleaned up. And ultimately, Rollins and Randall were out of Green Bay, even after some of the promise of their rookie seasons. Darnell Savage, I would argue, is a very similar player. You go back to his rookie season, you saw some of those flashes, but we saw some of the mistakes, some of the missed tackles, some of the bad angles, some of the poor coverage. All that stuff was there as a rookie. We were willing to forgive it more. And then his second year, he played better. And then, unfortunately, year 3 and year 4, he sort of regressed not only to his rookie level, but below his rookie level. But we will see some of those mistakes in their rookie seasons, and we're willing to forgive more because we have all this excitement. We have all this hope. They're going to be the future of this franchise. And then in year 2, that changes a little bit. Well, Eric Stokes in year 1, some of those mistakes were there, but he played really good football overall, in my opinion, in year 1. Still some mistakes there, but it was well above average football, and I thought he looked like he was going to be the next big starting corner for Green Bay. Maybe not quite Jair Alexander level, but he looked like he could clearly be a good number 2 corner in the NFL. Then year 2 comes, and what are we all thinking, right? He's going to go from, all right, he's a good corner in his rookie season, which doesn't happen all that often, by the way. He's going to get to year 2. If he can take any sort of step, like, this is going to be awesome. Jair's back, fully healthy. He's going to be the 1. You've got Eric Stokes now fully healthy. He can be the 2. You still have Rasul Douglas. Like, things were looking really, really up. And then Eric Stokes took a huge step back in year 2. And I'm not just talking about him getting hurt with a brutal injury, which is awful and sucks. And hopefully he's able to bounce back and be better than ever once he's back from that injury. But even prior to that, the coverage wasn't the same. Some of the mistakes he was making in year 1 with not getting his head turned and panicking at the catch point were prevalent again in year 2. He didn't improve from that. His tackling was way worse. Like, just not anywhere near the same player that he was in his rookie season in year 2. A significant step back. Next guy, Josh Myers. Same thing. You saw some of those plays in his rookie season that gave you maybe a little bit like, he's got to get that cleaned up, but he's a rookie. He'll be fine. And then in year 2, not only is he making those same mistakes, and by the way, I thought Myers played solid, sound, average football in year 1 as a rookie, and that's really good as a rookie and for an offensive lineman in the NFL. Year 2, he comes back and he takes a major step back. The mental processing wasn't quite the same. His physicality wasn't the same. He wasn't moving people in the run game. And it was a pretty big, in my opinion, step back in year 2 from what he was in year 1. Not only did we not see a step forward, not only did we not see a second-year jump, we saw significant regression from Green Bay's first 2 picks. And then there's Amari Rodgers, who was really bad his rookie year, but you're hoping, all right, he didn't really get to play wide receiver much. He's more in that returner mode. Maybe he can take a step at returner, but more importantly, let's see if he can finally open up and get a role as that slot gadget guy in Green Bay. It seems like maybe they want to give him a look. They try him in running back a little bit almost, or at least give him a couple looks there in preseason. And then he has a couple more mistakes on special teams and he ends up getting released. So not only does he not take a jump, not only does he not just stay bad, he's off the team. So we are 0 for 3 in a very aggressive way. Stokes takes a major step back. Myers takes a major step back. Amari Rodgers is cut. Then you get to Royce Newman, who as a rookie, not great, right? Not a great offensive lineman, but played over 1,000 snaps. And I would argue as a rookie who played over 1,000 snaps, couple different positions, moved around a little bit, I thought it was at least okay. It was at least passable. Like, you could say, like, all right, if we need to, have Royce in there for a handful of games as like the 6th offensive lineman, I feel okay. Like, we don't have to change the offense. I think we can get by with that. And maybe he can take even a step forward and become a starting caliber player. Instead, it was worse in his second season. So once again, we have another player who took, in my opinion, a step back in year 2. TJ Slaton's an interesting one. TJ Slaton, you could make an argument, took a step in year 2, but I think what might surprise you, he only played about 70 more snaps in year 2 than he did in year 1. I had him graded almost identical in those 2 seasons. PFF had a slight increase in grade in year 2 from year 1. I think he was a better player, but the very minimal increase in snaps and just not seeing any major impact, I think you could say he took like a quarter step, a tiny step, like, like just nothing major, but maybe a small step in the right direction, but certainly not enough that you're like, wow, TJ Slaton took this major year 2 jump. Shemar Jean-Charles didn't play in year 2. Cole Van Lanen got traded away in year 2. Isaiah McDuffie saw a little bit of an increase in playing time, didn't play in year 1, played a little bit as a backup in year 2, put some decent stuff on tape, took I thought a little bit of a jump as a special teams player. So a little small step in the right direction there for McDuffie. And Kylan Hill ends up getting cut in his second year. So overall, TJ Slaton, Isaiah McDuffie, some very small incremental increases as players, but Stokes worse, Myers worse, Amari cut, Royce Newman worse, Van Lanen traded, no jump for Shemar Jean-Charles, Kylan Hill cut, just a really big disaster from year 1 to year 2 for that specific rookie class. All right, how about the one before that, the 2020? Jordan Love from 2020 to 2021 didn't take a significant jump. Josiah DeGuara played a little bit more, but I wouldn't argue actually played better in year 2. Kamal Martin was cut in year 2. Jake Hansen didn't really play in year 2. Simon Stepaniak was cut. Vernon Scott didn't play. Jonathan Garvin actually played worse. But there were 2 players in that draft class that I did think took a pretty decent step from year 1 to year 2. A.J. Dillon in the second round barely played his first season, played a much bigger role in year 2, and I thought actually took a pretty sound step in the right direction. I think he was more around like the 500 carry mark after only 1 to 200 carries in his rookie season, or I should say snaps, not carries. That would be totally different. So snaps, but overall played a lot more, played better, had a much bigger role, and I thought you could see him actually have, so far, the best season of his career in year 2. The other one was Jon Runyan Jr., who got playing time in year 1, but in year 2, he was the firm starter. He was the really good left guard, and actually, with Bakhtiari missing that entire season, Elton Jenkins going down with the torn ACL, I actually had him as my highest graded offensive lineman for the Packers that season, and up to this time, his best season as a Green Bay Packer. So I think he took a pretty significant jump in year 2 and became a real solid offensive lineman. Now, he took a bit of a step back in year 3, as did A.J. Dillon, but from year 1 to year 2, I thought we saw a decent step for both Jon Runyan Jr. and A.J. Dillon. So that's a little bit better, but Love, DeGuara, Kamal, Hansen, Stepaniak, Vernon Scott, and Jonathan Garvin didn't really see the same out of those players. All right, then we get to the 2019 class, who I actually thought we saw some legitimate improvement from. Rashawn Gary, I thought from his rookie season to his second season, took a very important step. It wasn't quite breakout Rashawn Gary yet, but he went from basically a redshirt player to having a much bigger role, a much more rotational, I think around 500 snap role in year 2. And you could start seeing some of the stuff come together. The game slowed down a little bit for him. Thought he was better as a run defender, was starting to put together a little bit more of a pass rush plan. I would say it was a very important and significant step for Rashawn Gary to get to the point where he would have ultimately get to. Darnell Savage in 2020 had the best season of his career, like bar none, easily. He took a pretty solid step in year 2. Now, the downside here again is that he took a major step back in year 3 and year 4, but we're just talking about year 2 jumps. And I thought Darnell Savage from his rookie season to 2020, when he had the best season of his career, took a pretty major jump in the right direction. So that was solid as well. Elton Jenkins, he was good from day 1, but I thought he took a real solid step in year 2, and that was the best season of his career as well, in my opinion. So Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage, Elton Jenkins, I all thought took pretty significant steps in year 2. That was very, very nice to see. Jay Sternberger showed no real improvement. Kingsley Keke played about the same. Kadar Holloman, Dexter Williams, Ty Summers didn't really take any jump either. But your top 3 guys, Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage, Elton Jenkins, all took pretty significant steps in year 2. The year before that, Jair Alexander continued to show improvement. He was also kind of like that Elgton Jenkins mode where he was good from day one, but I thought he took an important step in year 2. Josh Jackson didn't really play in year 2. In fact, took a step back in playing time. Oren Burks, Jamon Moore, Cole Madison, J.K. Scott, Equinemius St. Brown, James Looney, Hunter Bradley, the long snapper, and Kendall Donnerson. None of those guys took a step. And then MVS had basically identical year 2 as he did year 1. No major step there either. So it was really just Jair taking a step in the right direction. Everyone else didn't really take that step in year 2. So if we just look at those classes, we had some players get pretty significantly worse in Eric Stokes, Josh Myers, Royce Newman, Jonathan Garvin. Those are kind of the main ones who took a pretty big step back in year 2. Multiple players were released, including Amari Rodgers, Kylan Hill, Simon Stepaniak, Kamal Martin, amongst others. So some players weren't even on the team the next year. And then you had some players that did legitimately get better in year 2, including A.J. Dillon, John Runyon Jr., Rashawn Gary, Darnell Savage, and Elgton Jenkins. So we do see it happen from time to time, but just as much as there can be that step in the right direction, we've also saw some pretty significant steps back, and we even saw some players released in year 2. So there's no guarantee that all of these players are just going to take a significant step in the right direction. And I would pretty much argue, I don't know that there was anyone in that group that we talked about from year 1 to year 2 that just took this monumental jump and you're like, holy cow, they're an entirely different player. And we live in a day and age right now in the NFL, and I did an episode last year where draft and develop is dead. And the impetus for that article, or that podcast, I should say, was really that you kind of are who you are now in the NFL in your rookie season. And certainly Rashawn Gary is a fantastic example of a player who year 1 was basically a redshirt guy. Year 2 was a really solid rotational player. Year 3, good starter. Year 4 was a great starter up until the ACL injury. So you can see those steps take place from certain players, but a lot of players just kind of are who they are. But this Packers rookie class from last year, from 2022, is now in their second season. Green Bay needs a real significant jump from these players. There's no two ways around it. If Green Bay wants to be better / good / really good in 2023 and maybe even beyond, this rookie class has so much potential, but they need to take that step, and that step needs to start happening right now, because if it doesn't, there's a good chance it just doesn't happen. You look at Quay Walker. He's going to be the starting inside linebacker next to Devondre Campbell. The sky is, his potential is through the roof. The ceiling is so high for him. But last year wasn't very good. Just flat out was not very good. It wasn't what you would have expected from a 22nd overall pick off-ball linebacker. He needs to be a lot better. He can be a lot better. The ceiling is so much higher. But with Quay, we saw some poor mental decisions, like shoving a trainer basically in a play-in game for all intents and purposes in that Lions game. We saw him get ejected from 2 different games, including the one I just mentioned. And we didn't see him take a significant step. He struggled to get off of blocks, struggled in coverage, struggled diagnosing plays. Those are things that he needs to be a lot better at, but he's going to play a ton of snaps this upcoming year. If he can take a jump, that's going to be huge for Green Bay and their defense. Devonte Wyatt barely played a season ago. It just is what it is. And it's not like they had a bunch of just Pro Bowl caliber players along the defensive line. I guarantee you, if he was really good, he would have been the second defensive lineman last year after Kenny Clark. He wasn't. He was behind Jerron Reed. He was behind Dean Lowry. He was behind TJ Slayton. He was basically number 5 on their depth chart. And he's going to be number 2 this year. He's going to be behind Kenny Clark as the number 2 defensive lineman. He needs to take a significant jump. The effort's there. The ability is clearly there. He needs to be much better with his technique. There's no reason not to be. There's no excuse. He's too talented not to be a very good player in this league. He needs to take a jump. Christian Watson is going to be wide receiver 1 for Green Bay, and he has every tool needed. And we saw exactly what he was capable of in the second half of last year. If there's a jump there, look the heck out. If he takes another step, he's all of a sudden in the upper echelon potentially of wide receivers in this league. If he just stays the same, we're going to have to wait and see a little bit more. So he's a player that can take a significant jump, in my opinion. Sean Rhyan, he's going to be a key part of this offensive line depth. They already started playing him at center a little bit or moving him around, see if he can gain some experience. But coming out of college, this is a player that I thought was going to be potentially in the starting conversation even as soon as last year. Didn't come into camp very well, didn't play well. And he's going to have to take a step and really be somebody that they can count on if they do have injuries on the offensive line throughout the course of the season. Romeo Doubs is going to be wide receiver 2. Zach Tom is in the conversation for a starting offensive line spot. Kingsley Enagbare very well could start at edge, or at least is going to be well, until Rashawn Gary comes back. Let me clarify that. But could start at edge until Rashawn Gary comes back. He'll battle with Lucas Van Ness, but at minimum, he's going to be a key rotational piece at the edge rusher position. Tariq Carpenter is a core special teams player, and with him moving to linebacker, could have some snaps in like a sub linebacker package. I don't think that's out of the question. Jonathan Ford's going to try to get his name in the rotational defensive line conversation and be a maybe run stopping defensive lineman. Rasheed Walker is going to try to provide depth along the offensive line and show that he can be a player that can compete at one of the offensive tackle positions long term. And Samori Toure is going to have a potential very big role in this offense. I think he's at minimum wide receiver 4. I think you can see him get pretty significant snaps this upcoming season, even though he was a 7th round pick a year ago. There is so much potential for this group. This is a huge future of the team type potential. Like that, if they are unlocked and they can become what they're capable of becoming, you can end up with multiple starters on this, just from this group. Quay Walker's already a starter. Devontae Wyatt's going to be a starter this season. Watson's wide receiver 1. Dobbs is wide receiver 2. Those are both starters. Zach Tom easily can be a starter. I think Kingsley Enagbare can be a starter in this league. And Samori Toure, too, I think could be a quality starter at some point in this league. That's 7 right there. That's not even including a Sean Rhyan who has the potential, coming out of college, 3rd round pick. I'm not putting anything. I'm not putting any expectation on that at this point. But even without Sean Rhyan, even without a couple of those 7th round picks, there are 7 starting caliber players here for Green Bay. But they need to take that next step. And I'm sure some of them will, some of them won't. Some of them will stay status quo. Some of them will take a step back. But if that group as a whole can take a significant second-year jump, man, that goes a long way in starting to really build a foundation of your future team. There is so much talent from that second-year group. This cannot be the next iteration of Eric Stokes, Josh Myers, Amari Rodgers. It just can't. Quay Walker, Devontae Wyatt, those guys cannot have that same trajectory. They've got to bounce back and have much better year 2s, learn from the mistakes of year 1, and become true pros in this league. They are far too talented not to do that. Christian Watson needs to be that guy on the outside, that number 1 wide receiver for Green Bay. Romeo Doubs, there's no reason he can't be a real legit starter in this league. Kingsley Enagbare, Zach Tom, both, in my opinion, can be very sound starters. Samori Toure could potentially be a starter in this league, but they have to work at it. They got to take that second-year jump, and they can't repeat the mistakes of the players from a season ago. That is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. But until next time, and as always, go Pack Go.